Hey students, this is Miss Casberry, and today I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about how to use pen and ink. It's a really fun medium to use and probably one of my personal favorites because it really mixes the idea of drawing with pen but also can tie in aspects of painting together, and both of those are really fun. So first I want to talk to you about a few materials that are needed. First thing is ink. So I have a Higgins India ink is what it's called. It's just a black concentrated ink, and a little bit goes a long way. So this container might seem small, but it's exactly what we need. So we have our ink. Another important factor is our pen. So a lot of you guys might just know this as a calligraphy pen. That has two parts to this. It has the nib, which is this top part, and that little canal in the center, that is where the ink gets held within the pen and releases when you put pressure through the little slit in the top. I don't know if you can see that. The second part is also the handle. What's really cool is that the nib can be pulled out and replaced with different size nibs, but for now we're just going to keep this one in today. Another aspect that we need for using pen and ink is good paper. So we're going to be using things with different water base, and so we need a thicker paper. Anything watercolor paper really does well. So that's what I'm using today. Then also a paintbrush. I like using a paintbrush with a little bit longer of bristles and pretty soft bristles, so a watercolor brush does really well. Along with that, for our containers, I end up using just whatever I have around, a few little containers to put my ink in when we dilute it, which I'll show you later on. So first of all, we're going to get into some of the basics of using pen and ink. When we're using pen and ink, I hope that's alright, you guys can see. When we're using pen and ink, we can get our black ink and open it up, and inside it has a little bit of a dropper, and I'm going to just use what's in the container for now rather than dropping it into a smaller bowl. We'll do that in a second. When using pen and ink drawings, you want to get your nib and stick it far into your ink so that way the little hole in the center is filled with ink, because that's what's going to hold your main ink while you're drawing. What's really important when drawing with pen and ink is the amount of pressure you apply. So you can make really fine lines, then if you also press harder, the lines get thicker because more ink's coming out. So that's a fun thing to explore with, is pressing and using a certain amount of thickness when drawing. What I love about using pen and ink is that you can make really fine details, and everything you do is just kind of a little bit elegant. Makes me feel pretty fancy, so that's fun. So you can just explore with using your pen and ink and create whatever designs using the thickness by putting more or less pressure on your pen. Another exciting thing that we can do with pen and ink is apply it to painting. So what I'm going to do is put our little dropper in here, squeeze the top, so I'm squeezing that, and get some ink in here. I'm going to drop it into our little container, and a few drops goes a long way, and pull out my paintbrush. So we can use the pure concentrated black ink and go at it with our paintbrush and make bigger, looser strokes with the same ink. Sometimes it's fun to go back and be able to do fine detail right next to your paintbrush detail. Can add some really beautiful effects. But what's really cool is also you can create different levels of gray by diluting your ink with water. I just have a mug full of water here. Can't see it that well. There it is. A mug full of water, and I'm going to add just a little bit of water to my black ink. See, it's still very concentrated. And it might make things a little bit lighter, especially when it dries, than the pure black. To show that even more, I put a tiny bit, just a little bit in here, and I'm going to add some water to this container to create another level of gray. So I'm mixing that in, just a little bit more black. And here we're going to get a very light gray. This is just our ink really watered down. You can go back over what you've done with your pen, and it'll smudge it a little bit. There's a bunch of fun techniques. Another thing that I really like to do with this is get a blob of ink on our paper, and then we can make unique designs by using the water and blowing on our paper. It creates some really cool designs that you can explore with. So for example, I'm going to show you a piece of artwork that I had been messing around with earlier using pen and ink that explores a few of the different techniques I just showed you. This was using some brush along with the pen and using fine detail, thick lines. You can also see the variations of grays that I used when creating these pieces. I hope that that small demo helped you understand a few ways you can use pen and ink, and have fun exploring. Thanks for listening.